I couldn't believe some of the things they wrote about the prequels, you know? I mean, but really, beyond, I didn't like it. You ruined my childhood, and I'm still angry about the way they treated Jake Lloyd. He was only 10 years old, that boy, and he did exactly what George wanted him to do. Believe me, I understand clunky dialogue. So I almost got hornswoggled in that documentary where they weren't calling it The People versus George Lucas at the time, but I could tell from the questions they were asking me, it was an open invitation to trash George.
George Lucas raped our childhood. 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 George Lucas raped our childhood.
And I have issues with George, but I love that man.
You go to make a movie and all you do is get criticized, and people try to make decisions about what you're going to do before you do it. You know, it's not much fun, and you can't experiment. You can't do anything. You have to do it a certain way. I don't like that. I never did. I started out in experimental films, and I want to go back to experimental films. But of course, nobody wants to see experimental films.
The main thing is to protect these characters. Make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them.
I'm curious that the Force doesn't get muddled into a bunch of garbly-gook.
Can I just say, though, a lot of times I would say to Ryan, we got to think about the fans. And he said, no, we got to think about the story, and we got to think about our movie. Which
Hello all, welcome back to Revenge of the Prequel. Me and the OG took some time from busting our asses back in 2018, but it's a new year, it's 2019 now, and we are back and ready to go. Now, the OG here played a small cameo in a fan fiction I made where Disney Lucasfilm got their comeuppance by the legend himself, Star Wars Theory, and if you haven't watched that vid, I highly suggest that you do. The link will be in the pinned comment. Also, if you're new here, you need to go back and watch episode 1 of the series to understand my intent with these videos, so go do that and come back when you're all caught up. Cheers. So today, and this will be split into 2 parts because this is a long video to get through, today we are looking at Star Wars Only. Now, surprisingly enough to myself, I actually do like Star Wars Only quite a bit. While being an insufferable OT fanboy, he didn't fall hook, line and sinker for the abortion that was Star Wars The Last Jedi, which is commendable. Turns out we have the same favourite movie as well, so mad respect there. And apparently we have shared interests in martial arts, jiu-jitsu among other things. So as you can tell, I've kept tabs on Star Wars Only for quite some time. He even made this awesome documentary about the history of Disney Star Wars, and I'll even promote that right here on this channel. Check it out, the link will be in the description. Though mine was better, just saying. Now with all that said, it baffles me that such an awesome dude could make such a retarded video regarding the Star Wars prequels. But fret not, we will be dissecting this tangled mess of shit and bring justice to the prequel fans all over the world, and call out this OT fanboy bullshit that plagues the internet. Before I begin, let me reiterate from episode 1 that it's perfectly fine if you do not like the Star Wars prequels. But that said, there are plenty of arguments given by people who dislike the prequels that are either regurgitated from somewhere else, hypocritical, or straight up incorrect. Anyway, let's get started.
What is up guys, Star Wars Only here, and today we're going to do the controversial video of why people do not like the Star Wars prequels, The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, why I feel like they are bad movies, why other people feel like they are bad movies.
A poorly aged statement.
Now, I'm not saying they're the worst movies in the world.
But you're going to try nonetheless, aren't you? Classic disclaimer that the OT fanboys used. The Star Wars prequels aren't the worst movies in the world, yet somehow it turned into a nitpicking competition.
You know, but I do understand and I do feel with the people that think they aren't that great. And will I watch them? Yeah, I've watched them plenty of times. I actually grew up with the prequels since I am a younger fella. But I do want to address the fact that they are not the greatest things, and I'm going to show you my opinion and other people's opinions.
Mainly other people's opinions.
Why they're not good. Now, I do disagree with some of the opinions, but I'm just going to give you every single point that makes these movies not as great as the originals. Now, I will do a little comparison to the originals, and I'm not going to go over the originals, but I am going to show you why the originals possibly would be better than the prequels and why the prequels are so lacking compared to the originals. So please hear me out on this. I know people are probably going to hate me for this video, and some people are probably going to praise me for it.
That is an accurate statement.
But just completely hear me out here. I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible.
You serious?
But it's going to be a little hard. So I'm going to do my best here to be as unbiased. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let's get right into it. So it's been 16 years since, Return of the Jedi came out, the last Star Wars movie, and you're in the movie theater and you're excited for Star Wars, and you read the opening crawl, and it's nothing but politics. So that's a little confusing, and it's not that the opening crawls are horrible, but in 1 and 2 they're about politics and stuff that honestly are kind of just, it's a bad start to the movie already. You're reading it and you're like, oh, okay, Galactic Republic. All right, why is there a blockade? And why are Jedi going to talk about this? It's just...
First off, why does politics automatically equal bad? Secondly, there's this little thing called reading, dipshit.
It's anticlimactic, whereas, the other ones, especially in the third one, it was like, wars happening and whatnot. It's like, whoa, okay, this is awesome. And same with 4, 5, and 6. They're not the most exciting things, but they give you little input, little story that makes you go, all right, that's kind of cool, let's go. The first 2 are just kind of, it's like, oh, wow, all right, we're in the politics. Senator Amidala, the former queen of Naboo, is returning from the Galactic Senate. What? Like, it's boring. So that's a little bit of a bad start in the prequels, and part of the reason they're not the greatest things in the world.
First off, beginnings of stories are the beginning of the story, traditionally. The climax of the film is traditionally at the end of the film. You see how that works? Also, if you wanted to call the Attack of the Clones crawl boring because it didn't highlight words like war or galactic empire, why didn't you mention the end paragraph highlighting in capital letters the Army of the Republic? Sounds interesting. Maybe we should actually watch the movie.
Now, George Lucas himself has said that Star Wars is not for grown men, just like My Little Ponies is not for grown men. It's for kids, but yet we still watch it because it's enjoyable. Well, not My Little Ponies, but you get the gist, Star Wars. The confusing thing is that if Star Wars is for kids, why are there so many politics within Star Wars? Kids aren't going to understand this. They're not going to understand how Palpatine loves democracy, or how he rose to power, or what emergency powers are for the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Senate. That phrase itself probably confuses the kids. So I don't mind politics, but when this movie is so heavily on politics, and that's quite frankly boring, it makes the movie boring. I watch these scenes and I'm like, okay. And only as a child I can imagine myself just going, what the hell is he talking about? What is this about? Like, why is there no proof of the Trade Federation taking over Naboo when there's literally 2 Jedi who saw the whole thing? Like, literally they can show video of this, but the Galactic Senate doesn't believe them for whatever reason. I don't know. If someone could explain that to me, that'd be nice. But still, too many politics within a kid movie. So I digress, but still, it's a little odd in my opinion. But
Absolutely right. George Lucas did say Star Wars is meant for kids. However, it turns out he also said this.
I would like to see our society mature and become more rational and more knowledge-based, less emotion-based. I'd like to see education play a larger role in our daily lives, and have people come to a larger understanding, a bigger picture understanding of how we fit into the world and how we fit into the universe.
Seems George Lucas's appreciation and respect for the capacity of a child's mind far exceeds that of yours. Now let me tell you how my experience with the prequels was growing up. The first Star Wars movie I had ever watched was The Phantom Menace at the age of 5. While I was 5, I only really cared about the action scenes and the spectacle of Star Wars, but I was 5 years old, bear in mind. As I matured in years, I discovered more and more about each of the prequel movies in terms of its deep themes and narrative intricacies. I gained more appreciation for the storytelling than the spectacle on display. And that's why, while Star Wars is aimed at children to enjoy, they don't treat children like idiots. Which is why people of all ages can enjoy them. It's kind of like Pixar in that regard. Also, that's one of the most retarded arguments I've heard regurgitated over the years. Star Wars is made for children, so why was Attack of the Clones and The Phantom Menace so political? Let me answer your question with another question. If Star Wars was for kids, only for the dim-witted, why were there so many grown men watching it for years and years on repeat, then going into their AOL chat rooms, their hate echo chambers, to bitch about it incessantly on the internet after the release of the first prequel movie?
Thumbs way down.
You didn't like it?
No, I think I deserve a public apology from George Lucas.
Now, that argument is based on the flawed logic of people rallying behind that statement that George Lucas made. And while he did say it, I don't believe he meant it was meant for the stupid. That's where people are making the confusion. George Lucas values the mind of a child, and that's why the Star Wars movies, for the most part, are quite intelligent in how they tell stories. It's for this very reason that it's reached so many people around the world, not just the child demographic. Before I continue, and yes, I know I mentioned the AOL chat room echo chamber, I hate the sequels, I hate Disney Star Wars with a passion, but the hate towards Disney Star Wars is way more justified, because Disney bought the intellectual property, then ruined it. George Lucas was the intellectual creator of Star Wars. Any creative choice he makes is his to make, and he's more than welcome to do it. No ifs, ands, or buts from me. I don't give a shit. I may disagree with some of the choices, but he has every right to make those mistakes. It's his to fuck up, in other words. Disney, on the other hand, don't get that leeway. They can't take a property, ruin the shit out of it, and get away with it. That's why the fans are pissed. Now, I could continue on that, but we'll literally be here for fucking forever, so let's move on. But I'm sure you all get the point.
Whatever. An overuse of CGI is the common argument against the Star Wars prequels. And CGI is good sometimes. It's necessary for some movies. It's just how it is. But when you're Star Wars and the originals are practical effects, mainly, and you're George Lucas and you say, hey, special effects don't add to the story. They're just special effects. Okay, fair enough. I agree with that. But when you add so many special effects to the prequels, you contradict yourself. And let's be honest, it's an overdue. It's unnecessary because these special effects that you're seeing on screen, they don't add to the story at all. They're just kind of there.
I love when people bring up that quote because George Lucas also said this.
In certain cases, in the movie business, the act of creating in the art form of movies, the craft of movies, is completely technical. That's all it is. It's a big technical thing, as opposed to writing a book or something, which is partially technical. The writing part, using the different pens, the different papers, that was all a big deal as you went back. The first printing press, binding books, paperback books, cheap books for a lot of people. That's all technology that allows the writer to reach a better audience, and sometimes in the case of painters as opposed to writers, express themselves more clearly. A lot of painters, Michelangelo, a lot of painters in the past were very adept at mixing colors and coming up with new colors so they could express things in new ways. The technology of brushes and all those things were very important to how they applied their craft. Same thing in movies, only it's 100-fold. The first movies, they just put up a camera and had a train come into a train station and everybody was amazed. And that was sort of all technology. Just look at the technology. But as it grew into more of an art form and much more sophisticated than that. And what we've been doing ever since then, whether we add sound or whether we add color or whether we use digital technology, is simply a way of broadening the canvas so that we have more colors to work with. As it started out, it was cave paintings, and they're very, very beautiful and very significant. But as you get along, the technology of using canvas or sculpting in different kinds of material, suddenly it all advances to a point where it gets very sophisticated, and you can tell much more interesting stories and you can express yourself more clearly.
Because I had a story to tell.
Yeah.
There's a gap between what is possible and where my vision is. And I've had to fill that gap, which is what anybody does. You don't invent technology and then figure out what to do with it. You come up with an artistic problem, and then you have to invent the technology in order to accomplish it. So it's the opposite of what most people think it is, and any artist will tell you that. And art, on all levels, is just technology.
He also said in the Blu-ray commentary of The Phantom Menace that he wanted to make Star Wars like silent films originally, and use visual storytelling, which explains a lot, especially when you completely mute Star Wars, not in all areas, but a substantial amount, including the footage you just used. Now, the footage you just used was the Battle of Geonosis, without sound, just visual effects and the story in motion. Now, I might be crazy for assuming this, but it looked like George Lucas was trying to tell a visual story of galactic conflict and an all-out war. Sure, there's a bit of spectacle to it, but isn't that a part of Star Wars' identity, the spectacle? No, I must be crazy for even considering such a thing, because fuck logic, right? Also, having the two latter Star Wars prequels be primarily filmed with digital technology is about as ballsy a move as a director can make, considering that they were going to lengths never even attempted, at least to my knowledge, with experimental technology and CGI. So wait, Chris Stuckman and I Hate Everything will applaud Rian Johnson for taking the series in a bold new direction, but George Lucas gets chastised for using excessive special effects that the production team back in 1998 didn't even know if they could fully accomplish? Right. God, I love the OT fanboys, just oozing with logic, every single one of them.
And it's hard for actors to be good on a green screen because you don't feel like you're actually in the scene. You don't feel like you're in the Star Wars universe. You feel like you're on a green screen and there's nothing to act off of. Hayden Christensen himself has said that the best scene for him was when he was at the bar chasing Zom Weasley. He said, because we actually built the set. I actually felt like I was in the situation. Everything else, he was on a green screen. He's not a great actor, I've already said that. But this kind of, I can see his point on it's going to be hard to act on a green screen. And some of the special effects just don't look good. Like this scene right here, it looks so fake and weird. I just don't like it. And a lot of people don't like it either. So special effects are not bad. But when you overdo them like Lucas did, they are.
Now look, I can't find that quote where Hayden Christensen said that, but let's just say he did, alright? He also said this. On the behind-the-scenes documentary of Attack of the Clones, if you haven't watched it, I highly suggest you check it out. Very informative watch. Regarding the blue and green screens, he said,
It's challenging because there's nothing there, but it's like theater in that way, you know. It's very demanding on the imagination.
I'm going to come back to this in a moment because I know you're about to talk about the acting. But this retarded statement you make that CGI is good, but when George Lucas overdid it, it was bad. Visuals are very much subjective, but again, nobody talks about how remarkable the feats of special effects George Lucas accomplished was. Either not wanting to, out of personal spite, or just blatantly ignoring the facts, or just having not educated themselves on the matter by regurgitating someone else's argument. Let me give you an example. Paul Greengrass is often praised as being the man who revolutionized shaky cam for the film industry and filming action scenes with the Bourne films. Since then, directors have overused the technique to hide how piss poor they are at filming action scenes, alright? This is a problem prevalent throughout all of Hollywood and modern action movies. George Lucas pretty much did the same thing with the prequels. Hell, ILM, his production company, had to even invent some of the technology themselves in order to reach George's standard for special effects and the CG imagery. And ever since the prequels, the majority of Hollywood blockbusters nowadays tend to use an excessive amount of CGI without providing the depth for today's standards, essentially affecting the film industry in the same way as Paul Greengrass did. So wait, Paul Greengrass and the Bourne films get praised for it, but when it comes to George Lucas and the prequels, people condemn it? Yeah, great. I don't really care how much practical shit the original trilogies used. Treating them like immaculate masterpieces whilst condemning the prequels for aging poorly, especially considering how much more ambitious the prequels were in its scale, is completely retarded.
Now, we all knew that the acting part is a big kind of deal. A lot of people don't like the acting in the prequels. Jake Lloyd, per se. Hayden Christensen, per se. Basically anyone who played Anakin. You can sit here and try to argue with me that Hayden Christensen's not that bad of an actor, but I want you to name me 5 movies that he has done successfully well in. You can't, because there's nothing. Like, he's just not that good of an actor. And poor Jake Lloyd has his life ruined by Star Wars, by George Lucas. Now, I'm not blaming Jake Lloyd, but it's bad casting on George's part. And the acting just sometimes was cringeworthy. Are you an angel? What? I don't like sand. What? Like, those are bad lines, but they're also with bad actors. So the acting in these movies weren't up to par.
Yes, Jake did have his life ruined, so give yourself a pat on the back for that. Good job. Speaking of contradictions, by saying Hayden was a bad actor while having to act in a blue screen environment the way he did, and given his quote that I just mentioned a few minutes ago, him saying that it was just like theater in that way, having nothing to act against, wouldn't one say by that fact that it would make him a good actor for being able to pull it off in the manner that he did? Not a great actor. He wasn't perfect by any means, as many of us well know, but a good actor nonetheless. Actually, no, great. As a visual actor, all of his scenes where he demonstrated his emotions without dialogue were, for the most part, fantastic. And again, the evidence to that point being that he emoted while in a green screen environment. Also, there's another argument saying that George had way too much creative control and that everything, including the performances, were specifically designed by him, thereby mitigating the actors. And yes, I'm including both Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen here. And also, if a character and their demeanor is designed to be a certain way, and people hate said character for those very reasons that they were designed for, does that make the character inherently bad? Honestly, I personally don't think so. A quick example would be Heimdall from the Thor movies, played by Idris Elba. What's he designed to be? He has the personality of a rock and the depth of a puddle. So why do I like the character? Because he's specifically designed to be that way. The strong silent type, cold and stoic, utter devotion. People call Mace Windu boring and say he's a bad character, but they both abide by the same principle. Except Thor doesn't have what I like to call the Star Wars lens, so you won't find this level of scrutiny applied to Heimdall the way it was applied to Mace Windu, despite both those characters being exactly what they needed to be. Now, I'm sure there are some exceptions. I'm not going to say this is an absolute because I think it deserves a lengthy discussion. But let me put it this way. There are plenty of good things that I hate, but I recognize are good. And there are plenty of bad things that I like, but I recognize are bad. And all of these I love and hate for reasons they were by design, despite the objective quality being good or bad.
They had some great actors. Liam Neeson did amazing. Ewan McGregor, oh my god, did great. But yeah, there are some bad actors in here that don't deserve to be in here and kind of got handed with a shitty script. So it's not their fault, but still, bad acting happened. Now, a lot of people actually praise the prequels for the amazing lightsaber battles. But why does it look like Anakin and Dooku are having a rave party? They're just swinging the lightsabers around like this. Like, what is going on here? Yes, the prequels actually have a lot better lightsaber battles than the originals, but there's some parts like this where Anakin gets his hand chopped off by literally just holding it out in the air. It's kind of weird. I mean...
Thanks for playing the clip in full, because the prequels have many lightsaber fights, and the one that had the moment which apparently was a deal breaker for you based on this video lasted approximately 10 seconds. Yep, I timed it. It was 10 seconds from start to finish. If I had to speculate, I'd say Lucas wanted to show the actors' faces while the duel was occurring to demonstrate a story of how Anakin was bravely fighting but completely outmatched based on the expressions shown to us. Look, it's not my favorite fight by any means, and I could very well be wrong about that, but seriously, prequel hate is full of this nitpicky bullshit. It's almost like they're just trying to spot errors and ticking boxes instead of looking even the slightest bit deeper. Also, I did notice Anakin holding his saber out, but the moment is compensated by Dooku's inside move. You'll actually notice if you play the scene slowly, Anakin extended his lightsaber thinking Dooku was going to go outside, when in fact he spun inside. I don't know, but at least I took the time to properly analyze it.
I'm not too fond of the prequel lightsaber battles, especially the ones like this in Yoda fighting. Alright, this scene was badass when you saw it the first time. You're like, oh shit, Yoda's getting in here, let's go, baby. And he starts jumping around like a madman. I'm like, wait, Yoda's like 900 years old. He can't walk for crap. And you're just expecting me to believe he's just going to jump around like this? Okay. This lightsaber battle itself just looks so weird and almost pointless and stupid. But, you know, whatever. Some people like it. I don't know how, but some people really do like this. And I look at this and I'm just like, wow, this is a lot of nothing. And it just looks horrible.
I would actually argue that given the circumstances and the year of production this occurred, the Yoda fight was actually the greatest achievement in CGI history, at least to my knowledge. The stunt guy was forced to choreograph a fight, a top-tier Jedi fight, in an empty room with nothing to react to. The effects team then had to edit a detailed character with visible hair follicles and facial expression around that. Back in 2001. Now with that straight, and I said this in episode 1 of the series, there is no reason why Yoda wouldn't have picked up a Jedi's signature weapon and did what he just did. People say it's just CGI flash and there's no story. Well, you're seeing a top-tier Jedi Master fight for the first time, and fight the most imposing villain chronologically in the Star Wars saga, that being a seasoned former Jedi veteran who adopted the dark side, and just literally mopped the floor with our two main heroes. That's story enough for me. And millions of other people, I might add.
But, you know, whatever. The Darth Maul one is amazing. Which else one is good? I think that's about it. I mean, the Obi-Wan and Anakin one actually is really good at the beginning, but it gets so dragged out and it's so stupid and pointless. And I get it. It's supposed to be the grand finale. But isn't it like 14 minutes long? And like, why are they balancing on pipes? They're fighting next to a volcano. Or not a volcano, but still, that's how the production went or something like that. It was volcano shots. I don't mind a good battle, but some of these scenes were just so pointless and it was so uselessly dragged out. It was just like, are we going to get to the end of this or not, guys? Like, it was cool for the first couple minutes because Ewan McGregor gave some badass lines of, "You have done that yourself." Like, that was awesome. And it really got you going. And then Yoda and Sidious fighting while Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting. It's amazing. It's really cool. But Yoda and Sidious finish, and then you still got these guys going, and it just lasts forever. Like, this scene. Look at this scene. What was the point of that? That was literally the dumbest move ever. He just went by and they just clashed. It's like, hey, what's up, bud? That was just so stupid. It had some good lightsaber battles, don't get me wrong. But God, some of them are just so stupid and pointless.
I'm glad you mentioned the Darth Maul fight because I adored that too. Want to guess how long that fight was in totality? 4 minutes and 30 seconds. You want to guess how long the Anakin versus Obi-Wan fight went on for? 6 minutes and 5 seconds. And there were lengthy pauses in all of them. Most prevalent, the Anakin versus Obi-Wan fight. There were a ton of pauses in there. It feels much longer because it's intercut with Yoda and Sidious both fighting and using dialogue. And again, if you were paying attention, Obi-Wan was trying to escape. Hell, he's been on the back foot for basically the entire fight, while Anakin has been relentlessly pursuing him out of rage. And yeah, they clashed sabers. So fucking what? Watch the movie next time.
Now, the Jedi Purge scene actually wasn't that bad. But what was bad about it is that there's all these Jedi in the prequels, and you don't care about any of them. Ki-Adi-Mundi is like the only other Jedi I can think of outside of Mace Windu, outside of Yoda, outside of Obi-Wan, and God, who else? And outside of Anakin that talks. Ki-Adi-Mundi, that's it. No one else talks. And so when Ki-Adi-Mundi dies, like, it's actually kind of like, I like this scene. It's kind of sad. But the rest of it's just kind of like, I don't care about any of these Jedi because I don't know them. They didn't spend enough time developing the Jedi. You have all these Jedi, yet I feel like I know none of them. And yes, there's canon. There's EU stuff and non-canon and canon stuff that you can read about and watch. But it's still, in the movies, the normal viewer is going to be like, wow, these Jedi are dying, but do I really care? They didn't, explain any of them to me. They didn't talk. I didn't get any connections with any of the Jedi. So while Yoda's feeling pain, I'm not feeling anything. I'm just like, wow, the Jedi are dying. Maybe if I knew about them, I would care.
First of all, I love that SpongeBob Easter egg. Good shit. I adored that. Secondly, and again, another contradiction. People say that Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were lifeless characters, and that they should have spent more time developing them. Which I vehemently disagree with, because again, they were specifically designed to be that way, and Obi-Wan got development in the later movies. Now you're saying these Jedi are boring, I don't care about them, yada yada yada. You realize there's a thing called limited screen time, right? Again, this black and white viewpoint that characters need development and depth in order for you to care about them is extremely flawed logic. I agree character development is great and all, but some characters aren't meant to have it because they serve a particular role and design choice. In other words, these Jedi are exactly what they need to be in the context of the prequel trilogy. And this moment in the movie, you're watching an entire purge of seasoned justice warriors, wink, 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 who protected order and freedom in the galaxy. Not only are they being killed off like flies, but they were blindsided and betrayed by the very democracy they were trying to serve. Something that was even foreshadowed by Padme earlier in the film. In fact, this whole trilogy is glistening with foreshadowing if you pay attention.
You don't know anything about them. So it's just kind of, you're watching the scene and you're like, wow, this is sad for Yoda. And I can't believe the Jedi are dying, but I don't know any of the Jedi, so I'm not feeling any emotion towards them. And the Jedi Purge, if you would have known about them, it would have been great or sad, but it only lasted, 2 minutes? It's kind of like, all right, well, this scene probably should have been 30 minutes long. Having the clones kill the Jedi should have been a longer sequence because they're the Jedi. They're making it seem like they killed them off so easily when they shouldn't have been killed off so easily. So
you literally just whined about the duel of Anakin and Obi-Wan for going on too long.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to explain this. If you get it, you do. If you don't, you don't. It's just the simple fact that...
Yeah, we get it. You're an idiot.
I don't care about any of these Jedi because I didn't get to develop any of the relationships with them. The Jedi don't talk at all. The Jedi Council meetings literally have Yoda and Mace Windu talking, and Obi-Wan and Ki-Adi-Mundi, like I said, talks a little bit too. But that's it. No one else talks, and that's really kind of demeaning to the Jedi, where it's like, yes, we finally get to see the Jedi in the prequels, see what the Jedi were like, and you get to see them, and you're like, I don't see anything special. That they fought, yeah, that's cool, but I don't get to hear any of them talk. I don't get any relationships with them, except for the minor few. So it's just kind of disappointing to see that, and the Jedi Purge should have lasted longer. But, that's just me. This is my personal opinion about it. Other people feel the same too, but I don't hear many people talking about this part itself. So if you agree with me, please tell me, because I feel like the Jedi should have been elaborated more, and we should have gotten a better connection with them, instead of seeing them for a couple scenes and then get killed off so quick.
Look, all jokes aside, if you honestly didn't feel a connection to the scene, then that's your prerogative. No one can force you to care about stuff. That's fine. And it's a shame that you didn't feel that way, because a lot of this story was told visually, maybe even more so than verbally. If you feel characters gotta speak in order to connect with them, I don't entirely disagree, but to look at art with logic as black and white as that is again extremely flawed. The Jedi served their purpose, they were the way they were specifically designed to be, and they died. If something is specifically designed to be a certain way that is consistent with the characters and the story and the writing in general, it's okay to dislike it because of that design choice. But you can't say it detracted from the overall objective quality of the film because you simply disagreed with it. And that ends part 1. Part 2 will be up when it's up. I need more time. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate your time as always. Hope you enjoyed. I'm The Anomaly, and I'll be back with more videos shortly.
The main thing is to protect these characters. Make sure that they still continue to live in the way that you created them.
I sold them to the white slavers.
Star Wars The Phantom Menace was the most disappointing thing since...